And coming to you live from our studios here in Accra, this is the polls. Coming up this afternoon, inflation hits 50.3%, the highest in 27 years. We'll bring you a breakdown of the latest figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service, which figures the hike in the prices of foodstuff and fuel as key drivers of the latest figures. We'll get the very latest for you. Ministers of state who absent themselves from Parliament risk not getting their budget for the ministries approved. The warning of Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu as he takes on the NPP MPs and ministers for absenteeism. We'll get the latest from the House, plus some updates on what's happening up as the House winds up its activities. And later in the bulletin, as we count down to the last lap of the NDC's National Delegates Congress, we'll bring you an exclusive interaction with the youngest contender in the NDC's national chairmanship race. I'm talking about Samuel Yao Eduse. You get to know about him here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. Don't forget that we're also live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, on all of our social media platforms. It's at JoyNews on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Let's talk about the economy. Ghana's inflation has surged to almost a 3-decade high. The current rate has moved from 40.4% as of October this year to a whopping 50.3% in November. This is more than 4 times the rate achieved a year ago. Well, let's get an understanding to what this means and what the implications are. My colleague Isaac Ofieje is data analyst with the JoyNews research desk, joins us now in studio for the latest on this. And Kofi, for those who are preparing for Christmas, 50.3% is not a figure I'm sure they're working with. So how did we get here in the first place? Let's track the trajectory. The 40% plus was as at the end of October this year, and now we're doing 50.3 plus. So before these two, where were we raging, and what's our level of escalation in terms of inflation?
So remember, we started the year with an inflation rate hovering around 13.9%. We had just left the single digit zone and we were approaching the double digits, and we were increasing at an increasing rate. And then we saw it moving from the 13.9, then we saw the 30s, the 27s, the 29s, the 30s. Then we went into the 40s. Now we are actually in the 50s. The last time we actually had such a high inflation was 1995, when we ended the year with an inflation rate somewhere around 56.9%, if my memory serves me right, but it was around 50%. That was the last time we had anything in the 50s. Since then, we've not had any inflation rate either in the 50s or above 50.
For someone who's on the market right now trying to assess goods and services, if you talk about 50%, 50 plus, 40%, 40 plus, I guess there's that question on the mind of the average Ghanaian. I mean, what's the likely implication? That's the first thing that will come on top of everybody's mind.
Exactly. So bless that inflation acts like an invincible tax. So if I ask you to pay a tax and the rate is as high as 50.3%, are you willing to pay? So inflation, one thing that it affects is your disposable income. Right. So when we were actually doing the computations with 40.4%, we saw that if you are a worker and then let's say last year October or last year September, you were earning somewhere around 3,000 cedis, your salary is not the same anymore. It's around now 1,888. That was when we're using the
40%. Now we're moving
50.3%. So
by some 10 plus percent.
So it means that your salary has now depreciated. It's lost value just because of the invincible tax called inflation. So that's the implication. It simply means that, so someone will also say that, if you look at the 50.3% inflation, it doesn't really reflect what we're seeing on the ground, because on the ground, you see things, prices going up by more than half or more than 100% or and all that. But if you do the breakdown, you realize that there are some of the components or some of the goods that have inflation higher than the headline inflation. The 50.3% is a headline inflation.
Okay.
But there are other goods.
So let's try and break it down. Key issues, key driving factors, and it appears that food is on top of the list.
So last, when they released that of October, diesel topped. This month as well, November inflation, diesel is still topping. It's just that we've seen petrol moving from number 2 now to I think number 3. Then we have groundnut, which is the shelled groundnut, being number 2. We have, items like women underwear.
Yeah.
Women underwear was in the October inflation rate. It was number 9 in terms of the top 20 drivers. It was number 9.
And now it's shooting.
Now it's actually number 12. But it's still in the top 20s. We were actually expecting it to leave for another, product
to just take over.
But we've seen it featuring. This is the second time we are seeing women underwear in the inflation, the top 20, commodities driving the inflation. But you ask yourself, it's still, import inflation, which is still high. So for about 6 consecutive months, we've had imported inflation being higher than the local inflation. And even if you look at it on the, the regional breakdown or the regional level, you see regions like the central region where food inflation is as high as 70.1%.
But in terms of the regional breakdown, it's clear that the eastern region appears to be in the lead now.
I think currently
is that flipping the narrative? Okay, so that's the central region.
Yeah, in terms of food inflation.
And then you have regions such as eastern also joining the fray in terms of the high rates of inflation.
Yeah.
What accounts for these disparities that we're seeing regionally?
So remember that these regions, most of them are more or less like landlocked. They actually depend on what the goods we have here in Accra to be transported to these regions. So if you have inflation in Accra being high, it's more or less like the way we import inflation from the US and the UK when we import things.
There's going to be a regional distribution.
Exactly. So if you have people transporting goods from Greater Accra to other hinterlands or other parts of the region, then we find inflation also moving away from the Greater region, Accra region, to regions like this.
So what you have on your screens now, except so far, what we're talking about, the regional.
So almost everywhere is red. If you see red, it means it's a danger. And although the headline figure is 50.3, we have about, out of the 16 regions, more than 9 of them have inflation rates above 60%.
So you just have Upper West, Upper East, benefiting from some of the
region,
lower levels of inflation. I don't intend to stir controversy, but there's the issue about the figures itself being released by the Ghana Statistical Service. Some other experts are raising concerns about the figures. Is this the time to relook and reassess? Because some say we might be having more than that.
Well, remember that the Ghana Statistical Service, they have actually done what we call rebasing. So they've actually changed the reference year from 2018 now to 2021. If not for the rebasing they did, probably would have had November's inflation being higher than we are seeing.
Right.
But rebasing is actually good for the economy. But if you look at some experts like Professor Hang and co who are saying Ghana's inflation is more than 100% and stuff, we should know that the Ghana Statistical Service, their approach to calculating inflation or consumer price index is somewhat different from what Professor Hang has been using. He's been using the price purity approach, which actually calculates inflation using exchange rates. So for instance, now that the cedi is gaining value, we expect that the rate that Professor Hanks has been calculating
would have been depreciated.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the Statistical Service, they use, a weighted average of a basket of goods. That's why we call a headline figure, and they go ahead to give us some of the, items, the breakdown, and the disaggregation.
Okay then. Isaac, thank you. Isaac Ofieje with our JoyNews research desk, data analyst, helping us to understand this. I don't intend to stay on the controversy. Let's deal with the figures, 50.3%. At least that's the official one we have with us. Professor John Gachi is Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, joins us via Zoom now. Thank you, sir, for your time. So here we are, 50.3%. And I guess the implication is clear. But just before I come to you, Prof, I want you to indulge us a bit. Let's engage Kofi Kapito, who's Chief Executive for the Consumer Protection Agency. Obviously, he will be joining us just to share the concerns of the average Ghanaian out there, because they are alarmed about the figures. But Prof, let's start off with you. 50.3%. Did you estimate this at the start of the year? And Professor Kachi, you'd have to unmute so I can get the points you're making. But I was just asking if at the start of the year, looking at our economic conditions, you were predicting that we'll get here.
No. Hello?
I'm with you, sir. So you didn't see this coming. So what do you feel may be accounting for where we are today?
Well, I think they have been spelled out by the Sogah service. The drivers change from time to time, and sometimes they maintain. And so as we speak now, the drivers have changed a little bit. Housing, water, electricity is driving the inflation of the country. And as you can see, to a large extent, food price inflation is still on the high side. And that is actually indicating to us what we should do to food in general. We have left effective production of our staple food, if you like, rice, corn, and others for a long time. And now we need to reverse and shape policy to attract people to engage in production of this. And as this is done, we also need to ensure we provide a marketing conduit that will provide a stable marketing conduit for our farmers so that they can continue to engage in that. So that is what we have seen for some time now.
And I need to say this, that many were expecting that once you have the dollar rate depreciating in terms of against the Ghana cedi, we see the currency performing marginally well. You do not necessarily expect that prices of goods and services will be up at this point. Are there some points that we need to take notice of?
Yes, you need to take notice of the fact that the inflation figure we are talking about is a past inflation. It's November inflation. In November, we have not seen the exchange rate performing better, and that, for that matter, it cannot influence November inflation. November inflation is influenced by its own factors. If the exchange rate development we have seen is anything to go by, then that will influence December inflation. So that should not mislead people.
But then what we've seen is that, of course, as I was indicating, that the currency appears to be performing marginally well. Looking in that context, are we to say that from next month at least, there'll be an add-on effect, or perhaps we may be dealing with a different figure?
It depends on the weight of depreciation in all these cases. So if the weight of depreciation at influence prices, price development in the country is weightier, that would drive down prices. But we do not see inflation going down. We see inflation, maybe the momentum reducing, but inflation will still go up in December, perhaps not the margin of November.
Professor John Gachi, there's one more issue I'd explore with you later on, which would have to do with the market itself, because the Ghana Union of Traders Association is asking their members to try and adjust the prices of goods and services on the market. So it appears that we need to talk about the market itself. But Kofi Kapito is also with us, Chief Executive for the Consumer Protection Agency. You're obviously not happy about 50.3% in terms of inflation.
My office, I think the whole Ghana is not happy.
Right.
Inflation is not a good thing. Inflation sometimes depends on what your country is into. Places like China, China would intentionally even devalue their money because they are producing country
Currency.
so that people will be able to buy.
Right.
Unfortunately, we are not. So it's more like a double whammy.
Right.
What does the consumer do? Your salaries is not going up. Meanwhile, cost of living is off the roof. So it is a hard time for consumers in Ghana.
And for CPA, what are the key pointers that we must deal with as a nation?
Well, we must deal with number one, which I think it has started. The dollar is seeing some stability or some reduction coming. Fuel prices is going to go down even further than what it is.
Right.
Government should look at taxes. Government should look at not using the current exchange rate to calculate duty at the port. That is a killer, because if I'm going to buy high dollar on the market and I come and the duty is also being calculated based on the high dollar exchange, in the market, then the trader doesn't have any other choice but to pass it on to the consumer. So these are the areas that I think should be looked at. Taxes.
Yeah, and I would want to draw on the issue of the taxes. Which of them is paramount to you? Of course, government told us at the time that we're not going to the IMF, so we'll use the e-levy as some sort of a substitute. Now the IMF is in place, e-levy is in place, VAT, of course, is being revised.
You see, government needs taxes to be able to run the economy. I agree, but when the taxes are sort of one-sided, okay, or not being spread all over. Look, let me give you a typical example.
Right.
Why are we seriously correcting the rare property rates in Ghana? I mean, do you know how many, now a piece of land, even in my village, it's not small money.
Right.
But we are not doing it. So we are concentrating everything on that small number that somebody will say the low-hanging fruits. They are the ones that we are going after. Manufacturers are complaining because they are visible. The market women are visible. Guta, everybody who is visible is where the government is going to. I mean, to me, if you ask me, some of these things is a lazy man's approach. I don't understand why a country like Ghana, from Kufuor's time, President Kufuor's time, we were told to pay what is called toll recovery debt. My brother, as you and I stand, number one, I don't know how much the toll debt is.
Right.
I don't know how much has been collected. And I don't know what the balance and how long is it going to take us for us to finish paying that toll recovery debt. So what? Until I die, my son will come and pay, my grandson will come and pay. It doesn't make any sense. These things, it needs to be explained, because these are some of the challenges that the Ghanaian is going through. If government is done in other jurisdictions, government will sometimes sacrifice taxes, okay, so that it can cushion the people. If people are telling you that VAT is too high, then you turn around and increase it. How do you expect the people to survive? Meanwhile, you haven't increased the salaries, even in terms of government-owned business, cutting down on government-owned business. We haven't seen anything. VAs are still on the roads. Okay.
Oh, they are not complying with the directive?
Well, they are still there. Okay. I mean, executives still fly business and first class tickets. Per diem is out of this world. Look, I had opportunity to travel with the Millennium Development Pact,
yes.
when they were doing this electricity thing. Right. We were going to ask them to give us $500 and something million. Per the State Department's rule, no government official flies business class. The Ghanaian officials, 2 MPP MPs, 2 NDC MPs, some ECG, VRA people, they were angry. They can't fly from here to India on an economy. The white lady who was leading us flew economy. And then you that you are going to beg them to give you money, you are flexing your muscles that you want to be.
So you feel we need to deal with the expenditure. But then beyond that as well, we know that we also have to look at those who are selling on the markets. And that's a point I'd wanted to bring Professor Gachi in. But before I bring Professor Gachi, I want you to also touch on that. Guta has released a statement asking its members and members of the business community to try and adjust their prices, as of course we're seeing some marginal, appreciation of the Ghana cedi. So it appears that those who sell in the markets are part of the problem too.
Well, they are business people. Okay, just like the GPRT people are refusing to reduce transportation. To me, it's not fair because the same reason they gave for the increase is now in the reverse. So at least I want to see some reduction so that
on the transport front.
On transport, if petrol is going down, I should see some reduction on transport. If the dollar is going down, I should see Guta people reducing some of. Maybe you see it can even be a feel good attitude. Okay, fine, give and take. And the question is, we need to look at the profit margins in the market. It's only in Ghana that people expect to make 100, 200%. In business, as the professor is there, asked him, if you make between 15 to 20%, you've made a lot of profit. How many businesses make 15 to 20%?
Interesting questions you're asking there. Professor Gache, you have to address that for us. Is it the case that Ghanaian entrepreneurs and those who sell in the markets are part of the problem?
Well, I think until we do a survey to get on that, it is not easy to associate that to them wholly. But I think the statement that was made by Guta, I think what happens is that if you are importer, you are marking what you want to buy from outside against the dollar. So if the dollar is expected to go up or to be high at the time that you'll be importing, it is only proper that you sell at a higher price to accommodate that. And if now that the dollar is performing well against, now that the cedi is performing well against the dollar, it is only proper by the same approach to revise your price down to reflect that aspect of price development in the market. So I believe the call is in the right direction. And so it is when the dollar misbehaves again and goes up.
Do you see it misbehaving anytime soon?
Oh yes, this is just a momentary respite for the cedi. We need to do a lot of things as outlined in the budget. We need to focus on producing our own staples, rice, poultry, etc. If we are able to produce that, we'll lock up a lot of foreign exchange that we use to import those things into the country. So that is one way of the challenge. If we are bold enough to be able to enact laws or to revise our laws to indicate reinvestment of monies generated in the country by foreign companies, a certain portion to be reinvested in the country. By so doing, we will be able to reduce the amount of money that will be repatriated from this country. So a number of actions will have to be taken to give a long-term respite to the cedi.
Okay, so the final leg of the conversation will be on protecting the consumer. And that's where I want to find out from you what responsibilities really we should be bearing. Because everybody goes to the market, we all buy at some point. How should we be tackling our expenditure this time around in terms of the personal level of our economy?
Well, I think we need to respect our personal budget. We don't have to consume things just because we have money. Naturally, when we are in difficulties, we don't expect our budget to be the same. So everybody will have to revise his budget along. And that is the way we can stay above the waters. If not so, things will be very difficult for all of us.
Professor John Gache, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on the Pulse. And yes, obviously. Oh, you have a question for Prof? Yes, probably you could
but the biggest problem that we all know, we have a big government. And nobody seems to be talking that we should have a small government. A country like Ghana, why do we have all these ministers? Deputy ministers, for what? Chief directors, deputy chief directors, and so many, whatever. We know what our problem is. The professors and co, they are all aware. But the question is, If you look even the developed countries who are doing better than us, look at the way their expenditure
What's
is.
your question to Prof?
My question was, when is academia going to be bold enough and say this is the way we should go? Instead of somebody talking somewhere, another person talking somewhere, the issue is, it's a collective thing. We should be a serious country. Like I said, I don't see why, if government promises me that they've cut their salary by 30%, and nobody can tell me exactly how much was made or what that savings was used for, just somebody talking. It doesn't make any sense. In other jurisdictions, they will be able to tell you that we made $1 and this is what we use it for.
Prof, expenditure-wise?
I think we have talked about all those things he's saying over and over again. It's just that the government doesn't listen, or perhaps the government is looking at the engagement of the people as employment. So when you push government to scale down the numbers, it means that they release a number of people without jobs. So they are finding it difficult to do. But actually, in this time of crisis, we don't need to keep the large size of government that we are having. We need not to have some ministries that we have. There is a need to merge similar ministries to do the work that they do more effectively. We need to cut down on so many secretariats that we have. We need to cut down on so many appointees with support staff from political party arenas, etc. So all those things will have to be cleared for us to have an actual government size that reflects our situation.
Interesting. Prof, thank you. Kofi, let's talk about the consumer. Obviously, you are here on behalf of CPA. I'm just wondering if you have any message for Ghanaians out there as well.
You know, it's very, very interesting. And people don't understand. They say water would always find its level. Right. When you push somebody to the wall, they have nowhere to go but to come back through you. So when the consumer is squeezed, he finds other illegal ways. And that is what I'm afraid of. And I don't condone people doing illegalities. We've been talking about kalabule. We've been talking about corruption. We've been talking about all this. For how long are we going to keep talking about it that we cannot do any drastic thing for people to know that it's not okay for you to tell me that I should put something under the envelope. And it's going on. Because if they don't take that envelope, how are they also going to be able to buy papaya for their kids in December?
Interesting. So as we wrap up, of course, government is obviously inundated with a lot of petitions. What would be that petition from TPA to government?
All I'm saying is, if we are all in the soup or we are all in it together, let me see you also doing something for me to appreciate it so that I can say, like I'm saying, if you are telling me that I should tighten my belt, which I am doing to the last hole, but you don't even have a belt on. And then you are telling me to tighten my belt. You see people doing things that they are not supposed to do. The World Cup, we saw some ministers who were there. This is in crisis. Crisis, and people are outside enjoying themselves. But I and you, people could not even afford. You know, just yesterday, I was so, and this is where I think the Ghanaian too is wicked. A lady that bakes bread in my neighborhood, she has actually increased the price and reduced the size at the same time. So I told her, what are you trying to do? If you've increased the price, at least maintain the size. You can't reduce the size and increase the price. And this is what Kenke, the same thing. Everything, it is reduced and it is increased in price.
I think the businessmen have to change their attitude. But anyway, Kofi, would have to leave it here. Thank you, Kofi Capital, for joining us here on The Pulse. And as we count down to the last lap of the NDC's National Delegates Congress, we'll bring you an exclusive interview with the youngest contender in this race. I'm talking about Samuel Yao Eduse. We'll get to know about the candidate when we return after this break. Please stay. And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. The opposition National Democratic Congress will this weekend head to Congress to elect national executives. And key to watch is the position of the national chairmanship with incumbent Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo slugging it out with the party's General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia and two others. There's, however, a new face to the race. The former Deputy Works and Housing Minister, Samuel Yao Eduse, who happens to be the youngest contender in the national chairmanship race, is joining us in studio to have a brief discussion, even as we know that, of course, he's running around the country trying to get delegates to support his bid. You're welcome to The Pulse.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel going into the race and knowing that you're the youngest? At least age may not matter in politics, but it's a factor too, you agree?
Well, I think that is one exciting thing about the whole contest, you know, because of the courage, the audacity for me to get into the race, you know. But it's not so surprising to me because I don't see anything so serious about it, you know, because I started the politics early. Right. I've gone through the ranks from branch executive to ward executive, constituency executive, 2 times parliamentary candidate, became deputy minister, Ashanti region, deputy minister, works and housing, organized party elections at various levels. So I've played role in the various competencies in the party in terms of elections, campaign, strategies, and all that. So I don't think I've led most of their campaigns. Some of these guys who are contesting have led their campaigns. So I'm more exposed when it comes to some of these things. And so to be the youngest among them is quite exciting, but you've got to prove to people that you are in a good position to, you know, handle the mantle, to be able to do the job. You understand? And that is what I've gone to tell the delegates at the base.
Do people walk up to you to say, well, we don't feel you've been around long enough in the NDC? Simply because, because they feel you're much more younger than these other persons.
Well, I don't think those who know me, you know, see that. I mean, they are always... I think people know what people like about me since I decided to contest for the positions, my courage. And those who know me very well know that this job is not something that I cannot do. They know I can do, because leadership requires different qualities that you have to exhibit for people to have that trust in you that when he give you the mantle, you can do it. So I realize that the way we are doing things in the party must change, and the party needs new directions in order to change the narratives in 2016 and 2020. And that is really what motivated me to put myself up for this position.
And your party says it is on that quest of regaining power in the 2024 general elections. If you look at the NDC today, what's your biggest priority? For which, if you're giving the opportunity, you start by fixing.
Yeah, so we must look at where we are coming from. Where are we coming from? 2016 was the first time a party in opposition won power in just the first round, and that is MPP. In 2000, we had it on 2 occasions, first round, second round. In 2008, we had it 3, first round, second round, and we ended up in time. Right. So 2016 was the first time a party in opposition won elections in just the first round. And it's not the first time a party in power in our second term, in our 8th year, we had the opportunity to present the incumbent president as the flag bearer. And we had 44%, and we did not collate, we did not get our results. This happened under the stewardship of the General Secretary, Mr. Johnson Asiedu, and the Chairman Ofosu-Ampofo. In 2016, the General Secretary, Mr. Johnson Asiedu, was the chairman of the campaign. The chairman now was the first vice chairman and director of elections. We got 44% with a sitting president as the flag bearer, without the elections, the results to show. Fast forward to 20.
And you say, we'll come to 2016, and you say partly it's because of their faults?
Yes, because the chairman of the campaign was the General Secretary. And then the director of elections, he's in charge of whatever happens with the elections, was the current chairman. And he was the first vice chairman. So it happened directly under their stewardship. So they had this opportunity to present an incumbent president in unprecedented under the Fourth Republic. And they missed the opportunity. We did not get the results.
You didn't have the results?
We did not have the results. I went around and I said, well, nobody was able to provide me the results. Fast forward to 2020, the vice chairman, the first vice chairman of Ofosu-Ampofo, became the chairman. And the General Secretary maintains position as General Secretary. Nothing changed much. We went into the elections. We did not win. We did not get the results.
There are 2 separate
post-mortems. 2 consecutive elections.
Okay, 2 separate post-mortems that we need to conduct. 2016, your party was suffering, I mean, as experts would say, from the natural 8-year political cycle. You didn't feel that was much of a big factor that affected the NDC
every
at the
elections is special. Now we're going to have 2024 elections. It's different from what happens in 2020. You got to prepare because that is why we're going.
Yeah, but in 2016, you agree that your party had been in power for 8 years. No political party in the Fourth Republic had stayed on beyond the natural 8-year cycle. So it could have been a factor.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I would take it from, in 2020. In 2020, in 2020, what happened that we did not get our results? We have had that kind of prediction in some jurisdictions like the United States, but it happened that one party did not go beyond 8 years. You understand?
Right.
So I mean, that is just a trend. But when it comes to the preparation, the actual preparation for the party, we rely on the leadership of the party. They are supposed to lead the party, and so these two people who are contesting each other now had the opportunity to win the elections in 2016. Because let me draw your attention to this one too. In 2016, it was also the first time a sitting president contested a flabbergasted. Have you seen a sitting president lose an election in this country before under the Fourth Republic? Have you seen that? Have you seen a sitting president contesting as the flabbergasted for the party in government losing an election under the Fourth Republic? But it happened. So that's what you are talking about cannot be an excuse. Because in the 8th year, the party in opposition or the party in government do not present the president.
Presents a fresh candidate.
A fresh candidate.
Okay.
So this was a unique situation. So it was an opportunity for us. If you look at it from that point of view, it was an opportunity for us. But these two people, under their stewardship, missed this opportunity.
And you say Johnson Osiedu Nketia, Chairman Ampofo, should be paying the price for it.
Yes, because they played major roles in their various capacities. Because first vice chairman, director of elections, chairman of the campaign, and general secretary. I think everything they reported.
And this is why I'm interested in your campaign. When you move around and across the country, you speak to delegates. What do they tell you? What kind of hope or otherwise do they give you? A reason for which you've not back down, issue a statement and to say, well, I don't feel I'm in the race.
Yeah, because I tell them where we're coming from 2016, and then we came into 2020. We lost the elections. The current leadership missed the opportunity to unite the party, to reorganize the
And they agree with you?
No, yes, they agree with me. To reorganize. I mean, I think I'm going to go in out with the message of I'm going to give you presidential stuff, I'm going to give you this, I'll take you to America. No. These are when you are in government, you do this kind of campaigns. When you are in opposition and you want to win power, you talk about issues that will put you in the right position to win power. And that is what I'm talking about. These two people had the opportunity to reorganize the foundation of the party after the passing of J.J. Rawlings. Because that kind of unit command must be well established to ensure a power, that kind of authority that will instill discipline in the party, to give us a new outlook, to rebrand the party. They had the opportunity, 2021, 2022, they did not do anything about it. Sat down for a party in government to organize their internal elections 5 months ahead of us. What were you using the 2021 and 2022 for? We sat down for one lawyer, people to organize demonstration, could be reloaded. He did not get people on the street, and they were laughing at him. He was relying on NDC. He thought we'd join him. We were doing our campaign. We were doing our internal elections. When the government back was on the wall, that we have to put pressure on the government to make a statement to Ghanaians, we missed the opportunity because our leadership made the timelines. They did not regard the timelines. This is where I'm coming from. This is where we are. Clumsy timetable. When we are not done with the constituency elections, we are opening nominations for national elections. They don't regard. We are not doing the elections in 2026. We are all doing the elections in 2024. That's what they should know.
If these are the problems with the NDC, why must it take Samuel Yaw-Edusei to be the one leading the change agenda? And why should delegates be giving you that chance?
That is when everybody, like I said, by the constitution of the party, they are qualified to contest for any position in the party. So I could have decided to contest for branch, constituency, region, and I'm contesting national. And the national could have decided to contest for any other position. You understand? Right. But I'm contesting for the national chairmanship position because I think that there are some things that must be done to change the direction, to change to give the party a new outlook. Take John Mohammed's situation as for example. He's the only former president we have alive in the party. He's the only former vice president we have alive in the party. Why is this contest? Why don't you put this into rest? The leadership, this is a unique situation where a former president had the opportunity to contest again. What is so big deal about this thing that the leadership of the party, led by the chairman and the general secretary, should not put it, they had 2021, 2022 to put this issue to rest. So when I went down engaging the delegates, they asked me, how are you going to do it? I said, there are two ways. Okay. One is consensus building. Because normally when there are issues at constituency level, you don't always pass it to the region. Region do not always pass to FEC. Sometimes you sit down, Jojo, put the issues on the table and discuss and find a solution to it. Why can't this leadership do that? And they are enjoying it. This is Dufour, this is Muhammad, and they are enjoying this. You understand?
Oh, it's setting in?
They are enjoying. No, they don't have to.
The factionalism is setting in?
Because where we are, we have to think about the reorganization of the foundation of the party with John Mahama in focus. And that this is not a time for a contest. This is a time for the establishment of this unit command.
But by doing this, you're declaring alliance, and that could break your party as well.
No, it will not break the party. That's why. That is why I mentioned consensus building. You know, consensus has always been one of.
So you want, for instance, Tufo to just come in and say, "Well, I'll support."
No, he's not the one to say it.
Right.
It is the chairman of the party who he has failed to do that. He and the general secretary, they failed.
Why do you feel Ofosu Ampofo, for instance, has not been able to reach that agreement? You feel?
No, I don't know why
he's supporting well.
I don't know why he hasn't. I don't know. He has not told me. He hasn't told me that he supports this person or that person. But I think that if I get the opportunity, I told the delegates that if I get the opportunity, what they fail to do within 1 month, I will activate it and do it.
So now that's rearing its ugly head because it's becoming a point of departure and rancor even within the political party. Even as we speak, Chairman Ampofo, your incumbent General Secretary, Johnson Asiru Nkitia, all over the place, fighting over some of the happenings in the 2020 elections. You've heard, for instance, the clip that has gone very viral. Appears to be the
very unfortunate, very disgusting
of Johnson Asiru Nkitia. He's also in that race. First of all, do you believe the contents in that tape?
Very unfortunate, very disgusting, annoying. You know, very embarrassing that this leadership, these people, these two personalities who have benefited immensely from the party will pay the party back this way. That was embarrassing. Took us to court without results. Mobilized people to get to the streets. They were beaten. These are the kind of people who wants us to vote for them on 17th December.
Yeah, but Asiru Nkitia says it wasn't his fault.
It wasn't his fault, it was whose fault? He was the general secretary, the CEO of the party. What is he taking out for?
Okay, you know what? Let's listen to Johnson Asiru Nkitia briefly. The tape I'm talking about, for those of you who haven't heard about it, so we can get his thoughts on it very briefly.
I know that coalition, the system of the bus said. Robust and strong fire coalition. Your 5 regions now, or say, are crashing.
He told us the system was strong and robust. However, after collating the results for 5 regions, the system crashed.
Results, at the right time, said that the challenge the track. And so,
that was why we didn't have the results at the right time to challenge the Electoral Commission's results. And then we said we wanted to collate the figures manually, together with a team of university students. Griffiths again failed to do a good job.
Say your man appointment, or you're prepared to resign as our national chair.
Ofosu Ampofo said he was ready to step down as leader of the party if you don't appoint Griffiths as the director of IT.
You're appointing director of IT. Griffiths no, or no Akamba said Griffiths ne Baumia.
Akamba during the meeting mentioned that the person to be appointed as the director of IT has some underhand dealings with Vice President Baumia, and that the party has to be extremely careful in handing over its election collation mission to him.
Some of the issues that Johnson Asiru Nkitia touched on.
You see why we couldn't collate our results? When I went to the base and I told them we couldn't collate our results, some of them were saying, no, Honorable, they said we collated the result, but we did not get it on time. I said, look, they did not. They could not collate the results. They messed up.
Well, what inside story do you have on that? Yes,
no, listen to the tape.
Okay.
If you listen to the tape, this issue of scattered influences that I'm talking about has manifested itself. You realize the organizer had his own understanding. So in 2020 elections, the organizers too had to collate their results. And then you had the IT directorate, you had the election directorate, then you had some individuals who had also formed their own coalition centers. Hey, what are you joking with the lifeline of the party?
Why is this Johnson Asiru Nkitia's fault?
Yeah, because he said it. You know, he said it in the tape. He said he has.
He told us clearly that Ofosu Ampofo, for instance, just indulge me briefly. Ofosu Ampofo says, well, I'll resign if you don't give the appointment to Kwame Griffiths.
If you listen to the entire tape, Asiru Nkitia said, I admit that all those people had to report to me. If you are the chief executive officer of the party and general secretary, and he admits that all the people have to report to him, and they did not go well, who do you want to blame? Of course, I'll blame the general secretary. He also accepted it in the tape. He accepted that in the tape. So why did they took us to court for nothing? People died. You charge people to go to the police stations and kill themselves for the party. And look at this. Look at this thing. It's very disgusting, very embarrassing. How are you preparing towards 2024? with this kind of attitude.
And that's the question I want to put.
No, yes, that is what.
If you don't get elected, the likelihood is you may have Samuel Ampofo and Johnson Asiedu Nketia, either of them winning the elections. What would that mean for the 2024 election for the NDC?
Even this kind of their actions that they already is deepening some crack in the party. What they are doing is a serious disservice to the party, divulging some serious information out there. And you go out there and tell people that you're able to collate your results and all that. They are only trying to diminish our electoral fortunes in 2024.
You fear you?
Yeah, that is what they are doing. That is what they are doing. There's nothing else. Using their selfish interest to do that. That's what they are doing. Look at tomorrow. There may be a press conference by the other camp. That's what top of them. They may do a press conference. Look at they are just taking up. Everybody is quiet in the party. Everybody is quiet. We sing Revo, Revo, Revo. Do you understand the song? Do you understand the song, or we just sing it for singing sake?
You've been around.
When something is not going on right, you have to revolt. That is positive defiance. That is what we did in 2005 against Obeda Samoa and all those people. That's what we did. And so we keep singing revolution, revolution. This is a time for that revolution. We should get the two out. They have disappointed the party 2 consecutive times, and still deepening the crack in the party. And we are watching as if everything is normal. I will not sit down. That's why he said, I'm the youngest person. I'm daring. I don't fear those. No. My membership card is one day. I was a membership card once. Before I became general secretary, I saw him. Okay, you understand?
But even if they don't win that election, so even if we don't see them winning the elections, what we may see happening is that, as you're saying, there are cracks within your political party.
That is what they are doing.
So there will be a need for some level of engagements to try and, appease all of the camps. How would you deal with that if you become chairperson of the NDC? And I'm interested in that because even if they don't lose, they are still members of the NDC and they may go all out to say so many
things. If their supporters are dividing, if they are dividing the party at the constituency and regional level, and you get a neutral person there, you automatically unite the party.
Do you think you have the respect of, for instance, Johnson Asiedu Nketia?
You should have my respect. Why? You should have my respect. I've moved with him before. I've moved with Ofosu before he became first vice chairman. I led his campaign. I've always been with General since 2005. I've always campaigned for him. Right. So you should have my respect. I served as deputy minister for Works and Housing, deputy minister in Ashanti region. I did not do anything to tarnish the image of the government. You understand? My entire political career, any assignment, any role anybody has given to me, I've executed it excellently. You understand? Nobody can say, when I was chairman of the elections committee in Ashanti region, I did a job perfectly. When I was the chairman of grounds committee for the National Congress in 2014, I executed it perfectly. You understand? So they should have that trust in me.
But they are the ones who are the problem now because of what's coming.
Yes, because what they are doing now, their credentials. You are talking about an establishment. Yeah. Those credentials that has made them established themselves in the party, that have established individuals, like General has established, he has his own establishment. Those credentials have not evolved in recent times.
Okay, do you feel that the NDC will be taken seriously when you come out again to say that you're disputing an electoral outcome in the 2024 elections? So I'm not saying that may be the case, but do you feel that we will, as Ghanaians, take you seriously?
Of course, that will be automatic response. They will just refer us to the tapes. That even in our own party, people will say that, why are we going to court? Maybe these guys, they don't have the result. They are deceiving us again. So it will start from our own party. So that is going to be an automatic response from Ghanaians that, look, these guys took us to court without holding the election results. But if you maintain any of them there, and they go out there to speak to anyone, nobody will believe them.
Should the NDC apologize to the people of Ghana?
Should apologize to the NDC.
Really?
They should apologize to NDC. They should apologize to them. That is what they should have done, and then step aside. They should step aside. They should join the Council of Elders. What they are doing is bad. What they are doing is bad. Ask me, how did Asiedu Nketia become General Secretary? It's because we voted against Obeda Samoa, Bizidin, Acting Secretary, then Bizidin, Francis Essiem. Because they took Professor Mills to election in 2004, and we felt they did not perform well, we sacked them. That is what we did. I was in Koforidua. We used force. That is revolution. The revolution is not what happened at Cape Coast. They say some people were fighting. Anything that happens must cause a change. If it doesn't cause a change, it's just a fracas. It's just some violent thing that the people did.
Samuel Yao had to say, I should be saying, you are going into the race knowing that you have contenders. If you don't get elected, who else amongst, Johnson Asiedu Nketia and Samuel Fuson?
I don't want any of them. I don't want any of them anyway. I don't. They know me.
Are you not being selfish here?
No, I'm not being selfish. I'm talking about the interest of the party. They have failed the party. I'm passionate about this because when we went to opposition, if somebody was 40 years, if you have to miss 2024 and you come to the person will be 52, you are wasting people's life. If somebody was 50, you'll be 62. You see our selfish interest to waste people's life. Do you think, is that how we treated you when you joined the party? So what they are doing is very bad. They are deepening the cracks. They are taking the youth for granted. Unfortunately, they are taking the youth for granted. They are taking the new generation for granted. I'm not going to sit down for that to happen. I will come up. That is how I was brought up in the party. You have to be daring. That's what you call positive defiance.
Okay. There's a reality that may face you, which has got to do with how our democracy is being monetized now. And we need to face that fact that delegates would have to be, if I could use the word, settled in a very diplomatic way. You know that money will count in these elections. Do you have what it takes to carry out that campaign?
I've never looked at any aspect of money. Why I contested, I looked at the constitution. I went to the constitution. I realized I qualified to contest for the position. Pick a nomination form, get the endorsements. After that, engage the delegates. That is all that.
Yeah, but that's what's on paper.
No, that is all that I know. So on 17th, those delegates that I've spoken to, I know they have listened to my message, and they will have to listen to my message and vote. If they have listened to your message and they think that they will help us, fine. But I don't see any money issue.
Yeah, but I mean, you've been on so many platforms. You've seen some messages go around of how some camps are already advancing cash around.
I haven't seen no one has told me anything because even if there's going to be any money, how much are you?
Are you not pretending about this? You're
I'm not pretending. I'm not pretending about it.
You know that money.
I'm not pretending about it. But when you are moving around, engaging delegates, and you want delegates to meet you at a point,
right,
you got to give them transportation. You cannot tell me to leave my home from Sisala East and then come to town.
Okay, so all you would do is to pay for transportation.
Well, even this particular Congress,
right,
the Congress, the elections committee will take care of that. So you don't need to. They will take care of their hotels. They will take care of their everything because we all paid. I paid 12,000. You understand, for filing. I picked my nomination. I paid money and all that. You understand. We are hoping this short code and then bank accounts. If you want to contribute, you contribute to it. So we are trying to raise funds. As I told you, I've organized these kind of congresses before, right, so I know these are normal requests that we make. We always make it we always send it out to the public to contribute any amount they want to contribute.
But do you feel that your contenders are using that as an advantage against you?
You're talking about finances?
Yes, finances.
I think what they think they are using against me is not finance, it's about their credentials. And those credentials have not evolved in recent times because they've been in the system for a longer time. Vusu became organizer somewhere in 2002. General came in 2005. He's been there almost 2 decades. You understand? So that kind of credentials have put some people in a particular box. Right. They have confined themselves deliberately, confined themselves in the box, thinking that that kind of ceiling can never be broken. And I'm saying that they have a choice. They cannot put themselves to a situation where they have to choose between Sarah and Caribbees. You understand? They have a choice. We are not going to choose a lesser evil for 2024 elections because it's a very critical election for NDC. And that is what I'm talking about. So it's not about the money. That I don't care about money. You understand? I'm not thinking about that.
Okay. You are upbeat about John Dramani Mahama. Now, looking at what's happening, of course, he was the main candidate in the just ended presidential elections. He also joined the fray to say that, well, I don't think the NPP won the elections. Those were the words of the former president because he challenged the figures. He was the one who led the charge as the presidential candidate of the NDC going into that election petition case. Would you expect the office of the former president, or at least the president himself, former president, I should
after
say,
listening to
apologize to the people of Ghana? After
listening to Senou Ketie's tape, I know the former president will be very disappointed. Because now, you don't have a flag bearer. We are putting the party in shape, then we get a flag bearer. So when the flag bearer comes, he meets the party, where the party is led by the chairman. So the chairman invariably will have to put the party in order and then make things easier for the flag bearer. So after, even before the elections or during the elections and after the elections, it is the chairman who will lead the identification of the polling agents and most of these director of elections. The chairman will advise the flag bearer on the director of elections. When the flag bearer has any input, then you also bring in his input and all. That is what the chairman you should do. You don't impose your on the flag bearer. When you get the flag bearer, he becomes the leader. So for instance, if I have appointed the director of elections, I'm a chairman, and I have appointed director of elections, and we get a flag bearer, and the flag bearer comes and tell me, no, I have my reservation about this. I have to listen to what he's saying. You understand? Yeah. And so when you put yourself together like that way, you can drive the party.
Yeah, but I asked the direct question. What do you expect John Mahama, who was the lead petitioner.
No, that is what I'm coming
to do.
That
Yes,
is what I'm
precisely.
Yeah. So they are the ones who have to brief the flabberer, because the flabberer can never be anywhere. So the chairman of the party, you are the one who everything, and the secretary, they are the ones who receive. You know, I said that they all had to report to him. So after they had reported to him, then he will go to the flabberer and tell the flabberer, these are what we have. So the flabberer will listen to what they tell him and then present it to the public. You understand? So, but from the tape, it tells me that they misinformed the flabberer, which is a very serious disrespect in the highest order. It should get them out.
What do you expect John Dramani Mahama to do? I guess that question is much more clearer now.
Well, I think if I had put myself in the shoes, already they have allowed this kind of contest, people just trying to say some whatever about him. But I think that if I put myself in the shoes in the first place, if I were him, I would be disappointed for what has come out. You understand? And so I don't know how I expect that he should come out and say, I am very sorry because my chairman and secretary misinformed me. When the secretary had already come out and talked, why do you have to say? You have to keep quiet and then watch what is happening. And he shouldn't get himself involved in these internal elections, which he has really already, his office has already issued a letter to that effect that he's not, he doesn't support any of them. He doesn't support me. Okay. He doesn't support the he just wants to be neutral. And if I'm very happy when he issued that statement. Right. Yes, yeah, he should just. Okay.
All right, we need to go, but I'm sure you have a special message for delegates of the NDC and your grassroots supporters, who you say many of them are not even happy right now, based on what's happening. What will be that special message that you?
The message is very simple. We should vote. They should know, they should understand what we call positive defiance. Right. When things are not working rightly, stand up to it. That is NDC. Stand up to it. Don't fear anyone. And on Saturday, 17th December, that is what we expect to happen. If these two people have disappointed and deepened the clash in the party, let's get them out. Let's be bold. Let's be bold and get them out. And then get a new direction, a new phase, fresh ideas for the party.
Do you have any expectations of yourself? In terms of the range, percentage, how much?
Well, I am.
You have a target to meet,
I haven't done a comprehensive.
You don't seem confident, are you?
No, I know. I seem confident.
Right,
I haven't done any comprehensive survey. But looking at the region that I represent, from Ashanti region, alone, with 47 constituencies, I think I should be hopeful. You understand? After my engagement with the constituents and then.
So let's say you're winning these elections by over 40% of the votes?
Well, to be realistic, I mean, it can't be that high, but you need just the highest number to go through, So that is what I'm looking for.
But it's a win for you?
It should be a win for me.
Your number on the ballot?
Number one.
Oh.
I'm number one on the ballot.
So you're hoping to be number one at the end of the day?
Yeah, somewhere. I'm number one. Number one.
You don't seem to be giving chance to,
But they have failed on 2 consecutive times. They have failed, so why do I have to give that? Me, my concept is that when you are given a chance and you opportunity to serve and you fail, get out. That is all.
That's the man for you. He's the youngest, but of course, Samuel Yawaduse says he's going in for the race and he will be the winner at the end of the day to become the chairperson of the opposition National Democratic Congress. But we're still looking up to that weekend and we'll give you the very best of coverage as the NDC goes for its national delegates Congress. Of course, now to Parliament, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, is warning ministers of state to absent themselves from Parliament that, of course, they will not have their budgets approved. The minority insists that the ministers must be present during the debate. Haruna Idrisu has been speaking, and according to him, he says that the majority leadership is denying the House the ample time to consider the estimates of the various ministries and departments as well as agencies of the state.
I further warn that ministers who want their budget's approval must appear in person. If you delegate your deputy, we will delegate your money for you some other day after appropriation. If they send emissaries to come for approval of budget estimates, we will send their approval to them the day they are available. So, whip, make sure you have your estimates ready. Speaker, we should begin working towards appropriation. The attitude of stampeding us with several of it at a time does not allow for proper scrutiny. Already, you took advantage of what is called an economic crisis to delay the budget so that we don't have more time to look at it. Going forward, you must make sure that your reports are ready.
But just as we saw during the debate on the 2023 budget, the House is continuously being plagued with the issue of absenteeism. The minority leader says the majority side must show responsibility and commitment towards supporting government's business. He says that the side will subject all of the revenue bills to clause-by-clause consideration.
And watch your back. It is not just committee meetings. Members of the ruling government must show responsibility. Look at your back. Look at your back. How many MPs are supporting you at the back? Many of them are not in committees. They must show that approving a budget is serious business. And Mr. Speaker, to serve further notice, when it comes to introduction of the bills, clause by clause, we'll ask for votes on some clauses. So be ready that you don't say that anybody is taking you by surprise. When you come and say e-levy road fund, you don't give it to them. You come and say VAT road fund, it won't go to them. When you come, we will scrutinize it here and tie your hands. So be ready that when you bring bills here, Mr. Speaker, we're serving notice.
However, Majority Chief Whip Frank Anodompe is hitting back, accusing the minority leader of trying to raise the temperature in the House. He explains that the absence of the MPs and some of the ministers is due to the ongoing committee sittings.
My leader shouldn't raise the temperature. My leader should not raise the temperature unduly. And we are working together as a house. I am not too comfortable when you say that I must make sure my back is full. Look at your back too. Turn and look at your back. The fact of the matter is that committee meetings are ongoing concurrently, and the leader knows about them. We can count. I challenge you, let's count. So there should be no problem. My respected leader should just take things easy. We will do the needful.
Let's get the latest from the House now. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante is joining us with more. And Kweku, a lot happening in the House as we speak. What else transpired on the floor of the House today?
Have finally had the approval of their budgets. This is the first set of ministries whose budgets and estimates have now been approved by Parliament. It didn't come up with much resistance from the minority MPs, although they did not participate in the voice vote as I sat in the president. Let me run to you that the Railway Ministry has had 618 million Ghana cedis, 238,000 Ghana cedis approved for them for 2023. This is what they are going to use to do their business. The Transport Ministry has also gotten 1,226,619 cedis, whilst the Roads Ministry have gotten about 5 billion Ghana cedis for their projects next year. These projects, these budget estimates for these ministries have now gone through, they've been approved, and the ministry can now start spending from 1st January of next year. The minority raised a number of concerns when it came to the Transport Ministry. According to the ranking member on the committee, Gavin Kwame Agbuja, he says that government is planning to launch a local airline, but he is concerned that the specific operators and stakeholders that the ministry plan to use do not have the track record to be able to do that business. And so he wants the minister to take a second look at that. When it came to the Road Ministry, about 5 billion cedis were approved for their business for 2023. However, the minority leader said that he is concerned that the finance minister has capped the road fund and is using the money meant to construct roads for other things. And so he said that he was only going to support that amount of money that has been allocated to the road ministry if the finance ministry promised that they were not going to cap those funds. They also spoke about road tolls that government is seeking to bring back. The minority says they are happy that finally government has seen the reason in bringing back these road tolls. So 3 of these ministries, roads, railways, and transport, have had their monies approved for next year.
And there's a challenge simply because we're not having a high level of turnout in the House today. Is that possibly why the rest of the items are not being appropriated?
Indeed, our understanding is that a number of the committees are still working to be able to finalize their report and bring them. They've been listed on the other papers. Some of the reports have already been laid, distributed to MPs, and then the next 24 hours or 48 hours, it can be debated on the floor. But as we speak, there are a number of committees that are currently sitting, considering the various estimates of the various ministries. If you look at other paper, you have that of the Ministry for Youth and Sports, Ministry for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Ministry for Works and Housing, Lands and Natural Resources Ministers. The expectation is that very soon, as early as tomorrow, a number of these committees would have concluded their debate, the consideration on these estimates. A report will come to the House, then it will be taken. Remember, Parliament is set to go on break next week, Wednesday, for Christmas. And so a number of these bills, a number of these debates must take place within this week, so that next week, some of the controversial matters having to do with VAT, the e-levy and government revenue measures will come in for some consideration to happen on that.
And so going forward, what should we be expecting in terms of some of the outstanding bills that may be considered before the House rises for the Christmas break?
So you heard that the minority leader insists that they are going to take some of those bills, clause by clause, on the floor. Last year, when the e-levy was being considered, despite the minority having put in various amendments, they walked out. So when the amendments were called, they were not there. The Speaker simply skipped and dealt with the other matters. But this time around, the minority leader said they are going to stay on the floor. They are going to take some of those clauses that will come in the bill one after the other and subject them to proper scrutiny before they will be approved or disapproved. He, however, insists that VAT, the review of e-levy, and the 80 million Ghana cedis allocation to the National Cathedral will be opposed. You already know that the Trades and Industry Committee have put some eyes on the 80 million allocation to the Ministry of Tourism for the construction of the National Cathedral to demand some more information. It is not clear that information has come in and whether or not within the week those approvals can come to the House for a decision to be taken. But also we know that this afternoon, currently ongoing, there's a meeting between the Committee on Legislature, Governance. They are meeting to look at the issues having to do with the Office of the Special Prosecutor. The information we get is that the Special Prosecutor says there are 260 million cedis allocated to his outfit. It's not enough to be able to do the business he intends to do in 2023. So the committee has invited the Ministry for Finance to come and provide some answers. There will be some pressure on them to, as it were, increase the amount. But what a majority MP tell me is that if you are opposing some of these revenue measures, why are you asking for some MDAs to get a raise in the allocation? So these will be some of the sticking points this afternoon when the committee meets.
Grateful. Kwekwa Sanchi, Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent. Thank you. President Akufo-Addo is urging African countries to stop begging from the West in order to earn global respect and change poor perception about this very continent. The president's remark came on the day that the International Monetary Fund agreed to give Ghana some $3 billion loan to alleviate an unprecedented economic downturn in the West African country. He was speaking at the opening of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. Tuesday.
I hear a lot about the need to change our narrative and tell our own good story. Ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, nothing succeeds like success. If we work at it, if we stop being beggars and spend Africa's monies inside the continent, Africa would not need to ask for respect from anyone. We would get the respect we deserve. Over 30 years ago, one of America's most prestigious Ivy League universities offered a course in Mandarin, which for years had virtually no takers. Today, there is standing room only. And it is not because the course is any easier. It is because the position of China has changed. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, China was nowhere near where it is today. China does not ask for anyone for respect now. She does not need it. Let us make our continent the prosperous and joyful place it should be, and the respect would follow. I thank you for your attention.
Now, Health and Education Directors in the Brim North District of the Eastern Region have received a donation from the Ntiama Foundation to boost education and health in the district. There's more in the following report. The Ntiama Foundation has presented e-learning materials such as digital television sets, pen drives and boxes of learning materials to the education sector in the said district, and also donated 7 sets of desktop computers and UPS to 7 chips compounds in the area at a total cost of 105,000 Ghana cedis. Speaking to JoyNews, Shiva Banahini urged the Education and Health Directorate to take advantage of the items and use it for the intended purposes.
These items are going to CHIPS compounds, 7 CHIPS compounds on Ntiama Foundation's support for CHIPS program, and then early childhood support program. Under the early childhood support program, we have 5 schools that we've selected this year to benefit from it. So we donated e-learning materials and then learning materials, specifically TV sets, 11 Samsung 32-inch TV sets, and pen drives loaded with kids programs. These items are to also are to support the improvement of healthcare in the area. Specifically, there is this thing that the Ghana Health Service has introduced. It is the Ghana Integrated Logistic Information System. We want the chiefs to take advantage of it. At the moment, they are not being able to access it because they lack the needed equipment. We also want them to be able to take advantage of a National Health Insurance Authority's claim it policy, as well as to also ensure proper records keeping.
Receiving the items, the District Health Director, Stella, also thanked the Ntiama Foundation for such a wonderful donation to the CHIPS compound and promised that the devices will be used purposefully, and appeal to other NGOs to help Brim North Health Directorate.
To the Ntiama Foundation for such a wonderful donation that they've made to the directorate. Indeed, it's going to support us in our data management, managing our governments, that's the stores management, managing our claims, that insurance claims that we've been working on, and budgeting and all other softwares that we are using. These machines are going to support us a lot. We appeal to other NGOs to also emulate these gestures so that they come to support us and all other philanthropists. We are Olivers. Oliver will always ask for more. We need more of such support. So please do come and support us so that we also render the necessary health care that we are supposed to render to the entire country.
For the education sector, Emmanuel Atipo received on behalf of the District Education Director, Charles Echampong, and thanked the Ntiama Foundation because it has come at the right time and will help teaching and learning at the kindergarten level. He added that the education sector in the area lacks teaching and learning resources, and this will go a long way to help teaching and learning in the district, and therefore took advantage to call for help for the Brim North District.
They are worthy teacher-learner resources for the KG. We need these items to enhance teaching and learning at the KG level. You know, at the KG level, the children use play activities to enhance their knowledge about their very surrounding. So these items would enhance that attempt at making the children appreciate materials around their surrounding, as well as appreciate what goes on in the further environment in terms of other children, the use of teaching learner resources that other children in certain jurisdiction use. We have the television sets, and that's what will enhance their interest in play activities. There were complaints about the shortage of teacher learner resources. We have them, but we don't have them in the numbers that you would want to have. We appreciate that we have teacher-learner resources which are inadequate for the use of, especially at the KG level at our various schools.
And now the Ghana Health Service is rolling out a special COVID-19 vaccination this Christmas in a bid to show up the country's herd immunity level. A good number of Ghanaians are unvaccinated, threatening gains the country has made in its fight against the global pandemic, which has caused havoc to millions. According to the Ghana Health Service, vaccine hesitancy is largely to blame for the poor numbers. With the latest campaign, the service will go door to door to administer the jabs to persons who have not been vaccinated. Dr. Gloria Magreta is the Director of Health at the Ghana West Municipality.
Well, COVID never went away. We only relaxed the rules because the infection rate got down. And you and I know that COVID is seasonal somehow. COVID usually comes when there are festive occasions, when people get together. And Christmas is coming. So we know COVID is also coming. We never stopped having cases, except that the cases went down. As I'm speaking, it looks like today we have 9 people on admission. We have a few who have been discharged. And, you know, our reporting system is bad. So there are a lot more walking about. We don't know.
And there could even be asymptomatic people.
Sure. And then, vaccinations work on a certain principle, what we call the herd immunity. So if there are about 100 people in a room, and then about 90 of them are vaccinated against a certain disease, the 90 shield the other 10 from having severe form of the disease. Although the 90 can still get the disease, they will not suffer as people who don't have. And looking at Ghana, if 90% of people in Ghana are able to vaccinate themselves against COVID-19, then forever we'll be free. But it's not like that. We have hesitancy. So it's just about a few people who have been vaccinated. I think about 38% of the population has been vaccinated. So we have a long way to go. And we want to capitalize on this festive occasion when people will be coming with the COVID, so that we're prepared to meet them. From 14th to 18th December, that is within this few 4 days. But COVID-19 vaccines are always available. At any public health facility, you'll get COVID-19 vaccination there.
So if there's an organization or a group of people who want to take advantage of this mass vaccination exercise, how do they go about it?
Oh, that would be very good, because we want people to come out. Just see the municipal director in charge of that area.
Even on the bit of 15-year-olds taking the vaccine, we know when it started, there were some exemptions, pregnant women, breastfeeding women. It's important to explain why they can now take it.
Yeah.
Can you help us with that?
Yes, people were complaining, this vaccine, we had it too quickly. The period is too short. But due to technology, we were able to overcome to get the vaccine. And due to technology, we have now found that other categories of people can take the vaccination. So those who are 15 years and above, whether you are pregnant, whether you are breastfeeding, you still can take COVID vaccination. Initially, we didn't know what some of the signs and symptoms were, or the side effects were. So we exempted pregnant women and then those breastfeeding, because they are the critical people. But we realized that pregnant women even need it more, because if you get COVID whilst pregnant and you have to lose your life, you lose 2 lives. But with the vaccine, you'll be able to overcome the infection. So we've realized that pregnant women can also take
the
it.
vaccine.
And Ghana is rock bottom amongst nations in the fight against for gender inclusion. Ghana is not doing impressive globally in its fight for gender inclusion. These are the words of the former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, as Ghana is ranked 21 out of 36 sub-Saharan states and 108 out of 146 countries globally in the Global Gender Gap Index. Prince Owusu Ansah has more in the following report.
Since 2011, Parliament has made efforts to pass the Affirmative Action Bill into law, but the process hit a snag at the last session of the Fourth Parliament. In spite of a number of laws in the 1992 Constitution advocating the inclusion and participation of women in governance, Ghana is still lagging behind in achieving gender parity. Former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Mike Okoye, expressed worry about the gains made in the fight for gender inclusion.
Issues of affirmative action, the advancement of women in all aspects of our national life, including parliaments, district assemblies, and public service generally. It is really a sad truism that Ghana is at a miserable rock bottom on the international table on women in legislatures, among other nations of the world. And if we are at a rock bottom, or very near it, not only with regard to the world at large, but Africa in particular.
Senior lecturer at the University of Ghana, Dr. Mamiadra Jechi Jando, called for a separate government agency to monitor the implementation of the Affirmative Action Bill when passed.
Just putting these quotas or just putting these stipulations in an amended constitution, right, would not be enough. What we need to do is also to implement. Otherwise, the constitution ends up just being a piece of paper. So implementation is important. How do we implement? How do we enforce? How do we make sure that the quotas that we are calling for are really taking place? When we have parliamentary elections and even in boards and corporations and public offices. I'm calling for a separate entity or agency, something called maybe a Gender Equality Commission.
Meanwhile, a former member of parliament for the Evaluate Jura constituency, Catherine Ablema Afeku, says political parties should be deliberate about increasing parliamentary seats reserved for women.
Forward to now, there are 40 women in parliament out of 275. So my recommendation or my take was increase it to 30 million equal 300 parliamentarians and reserve 100 for women. We're not asking for tokenism. We're saying make it easier for 100 women.
She says the participation of women in governance will enrich the country's democracy. A report by Prince Owusu Ansah read to you.
Time now for our conversation with our partners, Deutsche Welle. Last week's nationwide raids, which targeted a radical group that was planning to overthrow the government, continue to cause some level of shocks in Germany. In Parliament, lawmakers are being briefed this week by security authorities and are discussing political consequences, such as the possible tightening of gun and security laws. DW's Thomas Sparrow has been in Parliament engaging politicians from both the government parties and that of the opposition. Thomas, I'm interested in knowing this, first of all. What else has come to light about this far-right group, what was actually planning to do?
Essentially, that the group was larger than previously expected and previously known. At the beginning, authorities had revealed 25 arrests and a further 27 people who were involved. It has now been revealed that that number could be much larger. Additionally, that the group had more weapons than originally expected as well. Around 100 weapons were seized already, and in general it is seen that this group, the Reichsbürger group, has an affinity to weapons, as authority describes. And a third element, which is also particularly important, that they had substantial amounts of money. During the raids, during the searches, hundreds of thousands of euros, in fact 400,000 euros in cash were found, as well as gold and silver coins. And there's also an indication reported widely here in German media that there was even a safe box in Switzerland with gold bars. So all this has authorities concerned. All this has given authorities clear indications that what this group was planning was certainly serious and advanced.
There's the question as to how imminent their plans to overthrow the government was.
According to security authorities, the plans were certainly advanced. The fact that they had a military wing already discussed, a political wing as well, that they had financial means, that they had also active and former military personnel, that one former member of parliament was involved. This is all indication that those plans were certainly serious. Another matter altogether is how close they were to actually achieving that goal. And authorities have stressed on various occasions that the fact that they carried out these raids was certainly a way in which authorities were able to react accordingly to the threat and also dismantle and reveal the extent of this group.
And of course, we heard about some of the measures being discussed by lawmakers to sort of tighten the security measures.
It depends what measures are being then discussed. There's certainly measures to strengthen security in public places, especially the German parliament. That is something that is being debated currently in parliament, and we may see action there. There's also a fierce debate here in Germany about gun laws. Germany has already one of the tightest gun laws in Germany, and there's discussion as to whether that should be tightened further to take weapons away, for example, from members of this Reichsbürger group. And a third element, which is probably the most difficult element altogether, is how to make sure that current and former military personnel, as well as members of parliament that were part of this plot, do not continue to have political influence. In other words, how authorities can make sure that within the justice system, within parliament, within the military, there are no extremist people. So the plan specific here is to make sure that people deemed extremist or anti-democratic, according to authorities, can be removed more quickly from public service. But authorities, and especially lawmakers with whom I spoke in Parliament, clearly stressed that they first want more information before making any wide-ranging changes to Germany's current system.
We'll leave it here for now. Thomas Barrow with our partners, Deutsche Welle. And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. Updates on our stories there for you, including the latest from the President at the US Africa Summit. We'll see you again. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Thanks for watching.